Stop losing. Beat Boros and Dragons. So you took our early format advice to draft multicolor dragon decks, but you're having trouble trophying. You try to beat mirror matches by going bigger than them, but Boros goes under you. You try to beat Boros by drafting a lower curve, but then your mirror opponent outscales you. I know you're having this issue because you said so in the poll I dropped this week. How can you craft a single deck to beat both? That's what we'll cover in this episode of Mana Tutor MTG Draft. And we'll start by covering how to beat Boros. The best way to beat Boros is to get into the mind of the Boros player and then figure out what would disrupt their deck. The Boros player is looking to go wide. I know there's some debate in the community that some players have had success going a bit taller with Boros. Honestly, all the taller decks are easier for the dragon decks to stop. What makes Boros hard to stop is how wide they can get by the time the dragon decks stabilize, such that they can go around any blockers and pump their unblocked creatures with Duty Beyond Death, War Effort, Frontline Rush, Rebellious Strike, or Bearer of Glory. They're relying on getting a wide board for these pump effects and to fuel synergies like Salt Road Pack Beast. They're also looking at double spell on turns 4 and 5 to further their wide board. To counter them, you need to stop their wide board. How can the dragon decks stop that? You need to go toe-to-toe with the Boros decks with board impacting plays turns 2 and 3, and potentially even double spell yourself on turns 4 and 5. This includes using cards like the Exhales. Dispelling Exhale is probably my favorite since the Boros decks never have the mana to pay for it, and if they do, you still significantly slow them down. It's not uncommon for me to first pick this card. Molten Exhale is my second favorite. That's probably why I like the blue-red based dragon decks. I also love Glacial Dragon Hunt in the blue-red based decks, but I also like blue-green based dragon decks, and Piercing Exhale is a great card to double spell with. You'll need creatures to cast the Piercing Hexale on, which is especially good to pair with 2 mana creatures. Saltide Devotee's Death Touch is great with Piercing Exhale. Einok Wayfarer is good, and you should consider not picking up a land from your graveyard when facing the Boros decks, since the +1/+1 is more valuable than another land in these matchups specifically. You've obviously got Traveling Botanist and Dragon Sniper at uncommon. I'm not afraid to put Undergrowth Leopard in my decks if I need more 2-drops. You do prefer the 2-drop removal to the 2-drop creatures for a couple of reasons. First, the removal can target the cards that help them go wider or deal more damage. The Shock Brigades, Dalkovin Pack Beasts, Zergo's Vanguards, and Descendant of Storms are all good targets. So are the Shocking Sharpshooters and Quarry Mountain Stalwarts. Notice that most of those are 3 toughness, which is why Channel Dragonfire, while still a fine card, is only a C-rate card. I do try to save my removal for these important go-wide cards, but if any creature is likely to deal you 3 damage a turn, you should just get it out of the way. For example, Furious Forebear is a card I prefer to put a creature in front of rather than use removal on, but I'm not saying don't use removal on it if you don't have a creature blocking it. I think some people might not kill the Forebear knowing it can come back in their hand later, but you just want to slow them down, and for the same reason I like Dispelling Exhale, the Boros decks paying 2 mana just to get a creature back is pretty expensive to them. Second, the removal ensures their board doesn't get bigger. While any turn you can keep the Boros decks from attacking should be considered a win, the Boros decks can just keep adding to the board to help go-wide payoffs like Salt Road Pack Beast, Coordinated Maneuver, Duty Beyond Death, or War Effort just to get stronger. What you prefer not to play on turns 2 to 4 against the Boros decks are non-board impacting plays like Roiling Dragonstorm, the Monuments, or Dragonstorm Globe on turns you can't use it to double spell. You can play 2-drops that impact the board for a loss of card advantage like Ureni's Rebuff, or cards that nullify creatures' abilities like Fresh Start. You care about disrupting Boros' tempo, and you'll make up for that card advantage loss later. You can play 3-drops that add to the board and give you card advantage bonus like Sipsig Appraiser. You do want to avoid counting the 3-color 3-drops as turn 3 plays, since they'll be hard to play by turn 3, especially when you're trying not to play a Monument on turn 2 against these decks. So how many 2 and 3 drops are you looking for? It's hard to give a rule, but I aim for at least 6 reliable ways to interact with the Boros decks by turn 2, and at least 9 ways by turn 3. Again, I'm usually playing more 1 to 3 drops than that, but some of them I don't count as board impacting or reliable. The fact that deck composition matters so much in this set does mean that drafting by win rate alone might hurt you a bit more than it does in other sets. Obviously, keep taking the bombs first. But some bigger creatures with decent win rates like Dustia Earthcarver and Sagu Pummeler, which in theory are reasonable cards against both Boros and Dragons, go down a bit in value since you need to save your more expensive slots for the powerful bombs. Try to ensure you're keeping pace with at least 2 board impacting plays each pack before turn 2, and 3 by turn 3 or you'll need to reprioritize cheap plays over better expensive plays. With nearly 40% of your playables designed to beat Boros, how do you beat the other multicolor good stuff decks? Card advantage. But before we go into that, we need to remind you to please like and subscribe. We are now 3 subscribers away from hitting our 1,000 subscriber goal, so this should be the video to do it. Thank you all for your support along the way, and please remember to hit that like button and subscribe button down below. Now back to how to win. If you're playing a lot of cheap spells and card draw, you'll be able to do a lot of double spelling. You'll be able to get ahead on board and hold up your Dispelling Exhales, Spectral Denials, and Riverwalk techniques to counter their bombs. You'll draw into your removal to clear the way. And once you're safe, you'll even draw into your own bombs to play. To be double spelling, you'll want the cheaper card draw. Cards like Unending Whisper, Roiling Dragonstorm, Sib-Sig Appraiser, and Winter Night Stories. I don't prefer it, but Focus the Mind can do in a pinch. Bewildering Blizzard is another one I don't prefer due to how costly it is, despite how high I was on it pre-release, but it can find a slot in a deck otherwise lacking card draw. I think you need a minimum of 2 card draw spells in these decks, and it's great to find a spot for a third if you can. But you do need to leave room for the cheap cards, and still, don't forget those bombs. I hope that helps clear up how to build a deck capable of beating both Boros and multicolor dragons. I'm not sure if the next episode will be more Tarkir Dragonstorm or spoilers to the upcoming Final Fantasy set. The Final Fantasy set is already, before release, the most sold Magic set of all time. I was a big Final Fantasy fan growing up, and so I'm really excited for that set. Either way, Tarkir Dragonstorm or Final Fantasy, we hope to see you in the next one.